We're live. Hey everybody, welcome to Zenny 62 and another great. I know this is going to be an awesome show. I've known this man. When did we meet, Chris?
We've known you probably 20 years, right? Like in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think we were all of us were trying to fight the good fight. You know, the last time the A's were trying to get a new stadium, and I think we all kind of met and collaborated. I know you had Steve Lowe on your show. What was it, yesterday you had him on?
Day before. I know, time flies. Day before yesterday.
Oh, day before. Wow, already. Okay.
Yeah.
He's always a great interview, man. I heard some of that. So that was good stuff. And anyway, so a lot of us have been fighting the good fight for at least 20 years. Yeah, we're all in the same boat.
And we were. It was choose or lose the A's.
That's right.
Remember
That's
that?
Right. Yeah. And God, that was a while ago.
Headed up with Bob Lyman. And we still have videos up from that actually on Zenny 62. And
that's right.
All the council members came, just like, you know, we've had, it seems like we've been through this quite a bit, doesn't it?
It's unfortunate. We're still having the same conversations 20 years later. But,
isn't it though?
You know?
I mean, it really is unfortunate, and yet it's agonizing for me to listen to the Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting, even with the major problems they have with that, to watch them just seem like they're just sort of trying to bull this thing, you know, down the throats of the folks, even with all of its problems. And I'm thinking, God, I wish we had collectively Yeah. Hey, so before we go in that direction, let me first tell my viewers what you do.
Well, I'm a fan of Zenny. That's what I do.
I'm a fan of you.
No, but you know, born and raised in Oakland. I'm mid-46, right? So I've had a couple careers. Been a teacher. Went to Skyline like you did. I think you took my lunch money. I think. Then I got to get my money back from that. But you had me by I think a year or two. But anyway,
I've never been a bully to anybody at Skyline. I was always the nerd.
I was so intimidated by you, man. I just had to give you my lunch money.
I was the first.
Anyway, from one Skyline tied to another. And then I'm a lawyer now. So been on the school board, Oakland School Board, and I'm on the Coliseum Authority now, and I've got a little side bartending job. So I kind of try to keep my hands in different things, and we're all trying to make a buck. So
hey, where'd you get your law degree?
Well, I went to Cal Berkeley for undergrad. Go Bears!
Go Bears!
And then I went to Golden Gate. They had a deal. You can get your law degree and your business degree. So
that's a great place to go.
Yeah. So and my partner, he lives in Pasadena. But we both went to Golden Gate together. So we deal a lot of cases together. And we don't see each other. Maybe once a month, but we talk on the phone, 4 or 5 times a day. So it's kind of an interesting partnership, but works great, and he's a great guy. He's from Wisconsin, so he's a big Cubs fan, big Packers fan, so he just goes back and forth about all this stuff.
Hey, so if someone needs your legal help, by the way, how do they reach you, just out of curiosity?
Well, our office is right there on Davis Street in San Leandro. Give us a call, 510-928-0454. We're working on our website here, so we should get that up running at some point. But thanks for asking.
You got it. Hey, now let's get down to the nitty gritty. John Mark says hello, Chris Dobbins, and
hey, John.
And people are mounting up. We're just going to get right to it. Tell my viewers, from your point of view, even though I know and you know,
sure.
what the Coliseum, the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority is, and how you came to be involved on it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So. So the short answer is Joint Powers. So let me back it up. So the Coliseum is situated in the city of Oakland, but the county of Alameda owns 50% of it. So it's joint ownership between the city and the county, and so the Joint Powers Authority is a combination of the city and county representatives. So there's 8 members on it. 2 are members of the Oakland City Council. 2 are members of the County Board of Supervisors, and then each side appointed 2 people. So Ignacio de la Fuente and I are both Oakland guys. Ignacio had a much greater Oakland political career than I did, but we're both Oakland guys. Yeah. And but we both represent the county on this board. So we were both appointed on the board. So
yeah. And so so you've been on it for how long? You've been on it for a while now.
For a while. Since 2011. So Nate Miley, who I've known for a long time, and he's a big. What I love about Nate is he's been fighting this fight since the early 90s when he got on the Oakland City Council. And he's very logical, very level-headed person, and he really is passionate about keeping these teams. And, he's really been, he's not the loudest guy in the bunch, but his actions definitely spoken louder than, most everybody else. And so that's kind of,
And we already get questions coming in already. John Marks, I'll get to your question in a second. I just want to finish rounding out, because there's also a static video as well as a live stream. Hey, Chris, who else is on the JPA with you? Give my viewers a full picture.
Yeah, sure. So from this, from the county side, like I said, Ignacio de la Fuente, myself, Chris Dobbins, Nate Miley, who's chair of the committee, and Scott Haggerty. And then for the city side, it's Larry Reed, councilman from District 7 in East Oakland. It's a gentleman named Yuhai Lee. He's an architect, longtime architect firm.
Yuhai stole my design, man. He stole my design, man.
No comment. I'll say we have a meeting tomorrow. I'll let him know that he took your design.
Let me tell you that quick. You finish, then I'll tell the story. Go ahead.
And then let's see, the councilwoman from West Oakland, and I'm totally blanking her. Lynette McElhaney Gibson, sorry.
Lynette Gibson.
And then there's a new young lady. It was Aaron Goodwin, who was a former sports agent, or he is a sports agent. He formerly was on it. And the new person, she's an attorney, really sharp young lady named Kristen
from Uber,
Allen, I believe.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, from Uber. And okay, I'll tell you the story behind. Oh, and of course, Scott McKibben is the executive director.
Right, he's our executive director. So as in most boards, like when I was on the school board, right, you'll have, it's a board, but then the day-to-day operations are not, we're not professional, we're not professional in that field. So it's, we hire somebody to run it. So Scott McKibben is running it, much like a superintendent would run a school district and report to the Board of Education.
Now,
same concept.
I'll tell you my quick Yuhai Lee story. Yuhai is a well-known local architect way back in 1979. At Skyline, our alma mater for high school, I entered a contest to produce a design for then the City Hall Plaza. And what happened was that a few years later, after the earthquake, when Oakland City Hall was being rebuilt, there was a design that was created for the City Hall Plaza. Now, the architect they selected was Yuhai Lee.
Wow. Okay.
And
I didn't know that, actually. Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's local big time. Now, if you go to City Hall Plaza to this day, in fact, for my viewers, what I'm doing is, as I say that, I'm typing Oakland City Hall Plaza, and in Google, and I'm clicking return, and then I'm clicking images, because then I'm trying to get this overview to show people what I'm talking about regarding what Yuhai developed and designed. If I can find the right overhead, and I don't want to belabor this point long at all, but I just want to make a claim regarding what I'm talking about here, because to this day it's kind of like, hey man.
So it was your plan, and Yuhai stole it, and wow.
Yeah, what he did was he took an aspect of my plan that had a zigzagger it. I'm trying to find, it's funny I can't find the right picture of the overhead, but it has a zigzagger it pattern, seat pattern. And I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. It's here, but that along the way, if you go out here, it's just the wrong angle. But there's a zigzagger it pattern that's an overhead for the City Hall. And that zigzagger it pattern that's right next to the BART entrance came directly from 1979 design.
Wow. That's good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I called Yuhai on it, and he admitted it.
No way.
Yeah, he admitted it. I guess
I got something to talk about at the meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess he was thinking, oh, this kid's not gonna, be involved in media. Who cares? I mean, he's a nobody. Yada yada yada. And I found a great picture, folks. All right, I found the picture. Hold on a second. It's right here. This is it. See, folks, this right here. This is it. The zigzagger pattern. See that? That zigzag.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
that is fantastic.
This right here came from my 1979 runner-up entry, and I was really bummed because the person who won the competition developed something that could not be built. It was completely fantasy, pie in the sky, and all this. And I designed mine to be built. Okay, I designed it to be built. So I was livid. I was just, screaming mad, man. I was livid, okay? And so I was just...
I'm mad too.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I was livid. So I was like, ah! So he admitted it. So yeah, when you go to the meeting tomorrow...
I'm definitely let him know that.
Yeah,
that is funny.
Absolutely.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Hey, so John Marks asked the question, and I'm going to get it out of the way before you get too many other questions. He says, what are we doing to retain the Raiders? That's his question.
Yeah, well, it's tomorrow we're having discussions about. Well, so let me back up.
Sure.
So we're all tremendously upset about what Mark Davis decided to do.
Mm-hmm.
You talked at the opening of this conversation. You talked about what Nevada is doing and how they are pushing full guns ahead, blazing. Mm-hmm. Even though 3 of the 4. You told me this, right? 3 of the 4 governor candidates are against using these public funds for this, but. Right. In any event, there's the leadership and the desire to steal the Raiders. And I use the word steal because that's what they're doing.
Yep.
They're giving the Raiders a bunch of money, and they're paving the way for them to come. And there's going to be problems, just like there were problems when the Raiders moved to L.A. But, we just didn't put up a strong enough fight on our end. I mean, a little too late, and there's a lot of stuff I'd like to say, but I'm not going to say on the show. But in any event, because I got a lot of issues I'd point to blame at. But in any event, we have we have a lease definitely through this year, and we signed a 3-year lease extension. So this is the last year of the lease. This is 2018 season. Mm-hmm. We are negotiating 2 additional years because most of us feel that it's going to be 3 years. The Raiders will stay in Oakland.
Yeah.
And that's it. So the Raiders are saying, well, it's going to be this year and next year, but most of us feel it'll be 3 more years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in terms of what are we trying to do? Let's see. So we are the body that runs the Coliseum. So while we are all fans, necessarily that's not our mission to, be super fans and just give away the store. Especially now with the Raiders leaving, there's definitely this sentiment to try to stick it to the Raiders and get what we can for the taxpayers. Mm-hmm. Let me say this. So, the Coliseum was built in '66. The very first event at the Oracle Arena was an Oakland Seals hockey game, right? So the Warriors moved over in 72 season. The A's moved in 68, but the Raiders jumped right into the Coliseum. When the Raiders moved back in 95, they built what we all call Mount Davis, affectionate center field, for $200 million. Right. And when the Warriors redid the Oracle Arena, or it's now called the Oracle Arena, actually, I'm not sure exactly how much they put into it, but we still owe about 60. So basically, we owe about $60 million on the Oracle Arena. Mm-hmm. We owe about $90 million on the Coliseum. And so the city and county each year are paying varying amounts of money to retire those bonds. So this year, the city of Oakland paid $12 million, and the county of Alameda paid $12 million out of the general fund, right? So that's less cops, less money for schools, less services, that kind of stuff, to go retire these bonds. So once the Raiders leave, we're still going to have to retire those bonds. Wow. Once the Warriors leave, to go across San Francisco, and unfortunately, that project is moving full steam ahead. Mm-hmm. So we have the Warriors for 1 more season, but there's the Warriors have to pay some of that bill. The Raiders, when the deal was written, the Raiders don't have to pay a nickel on retiring those bonds in center field. So most of us A's fans feel that, or those that can remember, long enough ago when the old bleachers, we like the ivy in the outfield. Then we built Mount Davis in there, and yeah. So in any event, your question was, what are we doing to keep the Raiders? Mm-hmm. We're trying to make them stay as long as they can, hoping something will derail in Vegas. And obviously there's some other fan groups out there that are pushing some different legal action. So we're just following along with what other groups are doing and trying to all fight the good fight.
Okay, so can you, as much as you can tell us, is the lease extension negotiation based on the existing leases? And I ask that because, if I'm not mistaken, the existing lease has language that allows us to continue conversations regarding a new stadium.
Yeah, definitely did. When Mark Davis signed the new lease, the 3-year lease last year after they had just lost the deal to go to Los Angeles, that was the whole thing. We're going to sign a lease and we're going to continue talking about, building a new stadium in Oakland. And that was for that last year, then this year, and then, the Raiders held the option. So it was like, let's see, when the vote came out last March, 2017, the very next day, in addition to everybody getting all the season ticket holders getting an email saying, hey, put your money down for Vegas, which was like a big, punch in the gut. the Raiders also that very same day sent over their letter of intent that they were going to, take the lease for this past season, the 2017 season. So the Raiders held the option for those that, for those that so they had the option to accept the lease term, and they accepted it, and they've accepted it again for this year as well. So, just again, very frustrating, but that's kind of what happened.
How are the talks with the Raiders? Are they cordial, or are they, always?
Yeah, I mean, so as in, how do I say this? So as the way board, and you know this obviously, but for your listeners and fans, the way boards work is, the board members don't do the actual negotiations. We have Scott McKibben doing our negotiations. So, Scott says they're going cordial. I think and again, I don't know this personally, but from what I've heard, the Raiders are kind of tentative because they know guys like me are really upset, and we're going to try to stick it to them, or we're going to try to, so somebody like Scott McKibben, who you've known for a long time, and ran the Rose Bowl and did a bunch of other things, ran the Oakland Tribune way back in the day.
Helped me on the
he's a guy. Yeah, he's a good businessman. He's a good negotiator. He's going to try to get us the best deal. So ultimately the board says up or yes or no. We don't, but we're not in it. So as far as I know, negotiations are going fine. I mean, we'll have another, maybe we can have another conversation, at a future date, because we're having a big discussion about it tomorrow. So
hey, I want to say welcome to everybody. Welcome to Go CSU. Raider Flea, how you doing? I think Wiggle Babies had a question regarding. John Marks has a question about how you feel if a court injunction were to be filed. There's not one that has been filed. And I'll say just candidly, John Marks, if you're going to file that thing, file it. Because, I'm saying, because he's been talking about it for a long time, but I'm saying, hey, man, just go in there and just sign it and do it. And it doesn't take long. It takes in fact, Chris, you're an attorney. What does it take to file an injunction against anything?
Yeah, well, so this is, how do I start this conversation? So, The action we just tried to have the Joint Powers Authority sign on was an federal antitrust case. And let's see, I'm not a federal antitrust attorney, but from, to put it in, how do I say it, layman's terms, in order to basically a party that had to bring an action, the party had to have standing. And in order to have standing, it had to be a governmental entity that had some stake in the game is not a great way to say it, but in essence it was. So because we have these bonds, it gave the City of Oakland, the County of Alameda, and the Joint Powers Authority, these public bonds, it gave us, quote-unquote, stake in the game, as opposed to all the season ticket holders who don't necessarily have a stake. I mean, we have a stake in the game, obviously, but we don't have the public stake in the game. So in order to bring the antitrust lawsuit against the Raiders, we had to have one of the three political entities sign on to it. And unfortunately, I was for it, but not all my colleagues were for it. So it basically broke down. The city voted one way, the county, all of us representatives voted the other way, for the most part. And so that the antitrust case basically was moot because we didn't have standing to bring a lawsuit. In terms of an injunction, I mean, an injunction is basically when you enjoin something, it's you either prevent something from happening or you go forward with something. So if I'm going to build, like a cement factory next to Zenny Abraham's house, Zenny would go and get an injunction to prevent me from putting it in. If I want to put a McDonald's in Zenny's, neighborhood, he might get an injunction to stop me from doing that.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, but in terms of
that's what we call a tort. It's a tort, doggone it.
Well, a tort would be like a personal injury. That's like a tort.
Yeah.
Right?
I was thinking about when I said that. I was thinking about the famous law case Rylands versus Fletcher, or Fletcher versus right, which is actually a case where this dude was downhill from a cotton mill downstream, and the cotton mill was dumping crap into the river, and they were getting harmed by it. So so when you say you're going to build something next to my place. Right, I think of that. I'm thinking like,
right, exactly. You don't want to. I mean, I like McDonald's, but I don't want one moving next door to me, right?
Right, exactly.
Right, that's what it is. But in terms of enjoining the Raiders, so when the Raiders moved to Los Angeles the first time, their legal argument, the City of Oakland's legal argument was eminent domain, right? So if Zenny had a beautiful house and I want to build a freeway through Zenny's house, I can get eminent domain and say it's a public entity, public good, and I can take Zenny's house, pay fair market value for it, quote unquote, and I can get your property. Well, the Raiders tried to use that argument, saying the Raiders were a public good, even though they were a privately held team, and it went to the Supreme Court. Excuse me, went to the Supreme Court, and the Raiders lost. Raiders won, City of Oakland lost.
Right.
So eminent domain, I don't think is the argument we're going to try to use this time. To enjoin them from leaving, I mean, they are a private entity, and they've had the rest of the league has voted them to do it. A lot of us were always upset that, when Mark Davis signed this 3-year lease extension, that he said, he was using good faith to try to get a new stadium. And every Raider fan you talk to, at least every Oakland Raider fan, nobody believes he was operating in good faith. And, you've had a lot of, Zenny, you shed a lot of light on that issue that, at one hand they're saying, hey, we want to stay in Oakland. On the other hand, they're shaking Las Vegas's hand.
Well,
so, I definitely think there could be an action for bad faith. Is it going to be enough to keep the Raiders or enough to keep the, let me say one other thing. So a lot of fans are saying, well, what if we do like what Cleveland did and sue the Raiders to keep their logo and keep their the colors, right? Because iconic logo, right? The pirate with the patch and everything like that. Iconic colors, silver and black.
I'm wearing it right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and in Cleveland, when Art Modell moved the team from Cleveland to Baltimore and became the Ravens, that was part of the deal. So it wasn't that Cleveland enjoined the name and the colors, the Browns, but part of their negotiation and deal of leaving, because there was some contract stuff going on, he owed him some money, and part of the deal on his end was he left him the name of the thing. So it was a voluntary move on Art Modell's point, right?
That's right.
The Raiders, there's no way. I mean, the Davis family is the Raiders. There's no way. I mean, that's their identity. There's no way they're going to allow it to happen. So, I know other people think that it is possible. To me, I don't think that's. I mean, I don't.
Hey, let me ask you. John Marks wants to know. He lives in Washington, Kelso, Washington. He says,
"Oh wow,
can I file a court injunction in Washington State?" That's his question.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
He's asking if he can file an injunction
to prevent the Raiders from moving.
Yeah, from Washington State.
To prevent them, so a gentleman in Washington State would enjoin the Raiders from leaving Oakland to go to Las Vegas. That's the question?
He's asking if he can do that. Yeah, he wants to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and the typical lawyer answer is, well, that's Washington. I can't speak to what the state of Washington does. If it was if you lived in Redding, California, say, could you enjoin them as an individual? My understanding is you wouldn't be able to, because your argument would be what grounds you would have to enjoin them. Well, I'm a fan, I don't want them moving. Well, that's not. You have to show illegal damage. Your emotions and your angst is not going to correlate to necessarily a legal remedy. So when I talked back initially from the antitrust exemption, you had to have standing to bring those kind of lawsuits. And the only people that had standing were the city entities, the 3 city entities, and the city voted against it. The county, I guess they could have brought it, but I guess they never got around to it. And the Joint Powers Authority, which all of us thought would be the proper entity to bring it, seeing as we're the Coliseum angle, it was voted down. So
yeah, John Marks is saying, well, okay, I would travel to Oakland, and I think John Marks is more than that. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. He would have to have an Oakland address, right? No, you can't just.
I don't necessarily know that. I mean, again, even if I live in Oakland, even if I live on 69th Avenue, right next to the Coliseum, again, you have to show you'd be legally damaged by them leaving. Even if you had, let's say you sold hot dogs at the Coliseum, that's still not. I mean, if there's always money damage, they could just pay you off. Let's say you had a contract to sell hot dogs for the next 5 years at the Coliseum at the Raider games. Well, they last 3 years. There's 2 years on the end of it. I mean, for A, no one's going to write a contract like that, but B, they would just basically give you some money to make it go away. It wouldn't be enough to prevent them from leaving.
But that wouldn't stop the workers from joining up and doing that, would it? And here's the reason I ask. I remember when I was covering the Arizona Cardinals visiting Oakland Raiders preseason game in 2015, and I got on that that elevator that goes down to locker rooms, then goes out to the field. And I happened to get on with a couple of culinary workers, and one of them said, "Hey, this hurt." I didn't ask. This was something that they were talking about, and they said, "What I love about this situation now is that I can piece together a full-time job between the Raiders and the Warriors and the A's."
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And, and being a former Oakland school board member, a lot of our employees that, hey, they're working, the day shift at Whittier School right over there off Seminary, and they're working the Warrior game that night, or they're working the A's game that night. Exactly. A lot of people, every Raider game, 2,000 jobs are generated by the game. Yeah. Every Warriors game, 800 jobs are generated. Those are predominantly Oakland people that are working those jobs. Tremendous. But, again, that even though they have a direct connection as an employee, they don't have the legal stake in the game. And I know I'm not explaining it well enough, but I just don't have my full brain around this type of law to be able to fully explain it to everybody.
I think for me,
but that's, they just, they're employees at will, so that means they can be fired for anything, so they don't have contractual obligations, long term. Yes, the Raiders aren't firing, everybody every year. But again, even though you have a job there, if you had a job my dad used to work at Heinz ketchup place on Fruitvale, right, back whenever, right, and that place closed. So things close, things move away. You don't necessarily have an ability to keep them there.
Donald Richardson is offering the argument. He says, what if you have a home owner, you're a homeowner and a person who owns a condo in the area, and you can prove that your property will lose value once the Raiders leave. That's an interesting take.
That's a great point. But again, all of us listening to here are huge fans. I think many realtors would probably make the opposite argument. Like say you bulldoze the Coliseum and you put a bunch of condos, it's going to go up. So it'd be I love that argument. I just. And I would believe it. I would agree with it, but it's just,
I think the argument that I personally go on is one that I made before NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell at the NFL Owners, the Spring League meeting in 2016 in Charlotte. And what I said was that I found out that Mark Davis had told Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf and Larry Reed, District 7 council member, who was the JPA chair at the time, I believe, that they were, and you might remember this, that the Raiders said, hey, look, we're going to find somebody to be the stadium point person to talk to you all about building a new stadium in Oakland. This is like early January of 2016 that Mark Davis said that, and basically told them, hey, told you guys, the Joint Powers Authority, let's reconvene, after April, I think when the leases, or just before then to get the new lease out of the way, right? Well, between the time that Mark Davis said that in early January, I'm told, and the time around when the lease was signed, between that, I found a letter from UNLV President Lynn Jessup that was posted on Scribd by an Aubrey Clerkin, who was a digital news reporter with the Channel 3 news in Las Vegas at the time. And that letter stated that Lynn Jessup, the president of UNLV, was going to meet with Oakland Raiders officials and tour the Las Vegas Valley, unquote, looking for sites for a new home. That was in black and white. And what that said, right in black and white, was, hey, they lied to us. Okay.
That's it. That's exactly. In 2016, they just lost out on going to Los Angeles. Right? Remember that?
I was there.
Won that.
I was there.
And at the same time, the commission, what the Raiders have basically countered the Joint Powers Authority, saying, look, you upped our rent 200%, whatever. It was originally $900,000 per year in rent, and then it was up to 2-point-something million. So, which was still, out of 32 teams, was still the cheapest rent, right? But, still, the Raiders didn't like it. And, the structure of the deal was that the commission still had to do a lot of the game day operations, a lot of it, just the minutia that goes into having a football game. The commission was picking those up. So, to defray some of the costs, we put it back on the Raiders. So that was the excuse they used, but I don't necessarily. Again, obviously, you see where my bias is, but I don't necessarily agree with them.
That's not the only that's not the only example of a cause of action. I got on video Mark Davis essentially lying about his intentions that week regarding Carson. Okay.
Right.
And he lied to Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, and then there are other problems connected with that where the Raiders, I'm told by a source, I can tell you off camera, I'm not going to say it here, would routinely refer to our mayor, our female mayor, by the B word. Okay.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't doubt that.
And there's a lot. And then the mayor personally told me on 2 occasions that the Raiders will not return their phone calls. So
don't doubt that either.
Right. So my point is, if you wanted to make a case for the Raiders not treating the mayor with respect because she's female, there's that hanging out there. All right. And I think with Libby, let me take the "I think" out of my statement. All right. I know part of the reason that Libby wants to wash her hands with the Raiders, as she says, is that she feels that if they really want to do something, they need to treat her with the proper respect that they've treated other mayors who are male. Okay?
Male. As a middle-aged white male, I can't argue with that, but look what, okay. I'll acknowledge that she said that, and that's how she feels. Mm-hmm. I would say this. Mm-hmm. Look with Kevin Johnson for all the some of the scandal. I don't say scandal, but some of the challenges he went through. He was able to get everybody together when the Kings were ready to leave to Seattle.
Right.
And Kevin Johnson. I've been in Sacramento all week. What he was able to do to get that stadium built, and it's beautiful what it's done to revitalize downtown.
Oh no, Kevin's great.
Not dismissing what you said about our mayor. Mm-hmm. I respect that. I just so you're offended, then okay.
Well, no, I'm not offended. I'm just what I'm doing is I'm laying out from a very clinical perspective, okay?
Right.
The cause of action to stop the Raiders from what they're doing. And that what I personally witnessed, and then people have not only told me, but in a couple of other cases have sent me documents to back up their claims. Sure. All right. So that's coldly, and very coldly where I'm coming from. But the reason why, and you would say, okay, well, why is your value structure saying to present that? And it's because of the fact that she personally told me this, and second of all, we do have #MeToo out there,
right?
And what might be thought of as trivial in the past no longer is, and so it really, in this instance, has to be considered as a possible reason why the city could act on top of everything else. And overall, Chris, what's happened is that you've got the Raiders not seeking, it would seem, to really clean this up in a way where they get out cleanly. And, everybody's happy and they say, hey, maybe we couldn't work it out for you, but then, and now I would argue that maybe Mark Bedane is trying to achieve that, okay? But, and I say that because, I don't know what Mark Bedane I get on what day. I don't know if I'm getting...
Well, I've told you offline. I don't know. I'm not gonna speak on him. I just. I know. I don't know if I see what you're saying. I think I see what you're saying.
But I think my thing is,
people. Let me flip the argument like this, right?
Okay,
so
cool.
Everyone wants to. Trump's in the news every day of the week, and people talk bad about him and say all this stuff about him, and whatever. We're not. It's not a political show, and we're not. But he just keeps moving, man. He just, gets. I don't know. If you're gonna get your feelings hurt. And then, use that as an excuse to not, I just.
Oh no, I think, but here's my point, and I see what you're saying. However, I'm making a partial devil's advocate point before I get to the other part regarding the mayor, and that is all right. I'm just laying it out for everybody because we have a bunch of comments I need to read in fairness to my folks.
Sure.
Like for example, John Mark says is what Libby Schaaf needs to do is file a lawsuit against Mark Davis and the Raiders for sexual harassment.
Sure.
And that is sticking out there. All right, folks, this is the first time I've said it, but I'm telling you, there's enough material to put that out there. And then Barry Lee says, does he feel, talking about you, Chris, do you feel at all that there's a case for the NFL not following its own relocation rule or unfaithful negotiations?
That's the bigger issue, and the fact that, then if I tell you, hey, I'm going to give you $50 million just to have these little votes, it's not going to affect you personally, and maybe even, going to help you out. The way their system is set up, where you got to pay relocation, so everybody just splits it up, the money. It's asinine. The one vote we had in favor of keeping the team in Oakland was the guy from Miami, and as much as we love, that gentleman, that was more of a selfish reason anyway, because he knew that if you're in Buffalo or you're in, New York or you're in Detroit in, November, and, normally if you're going to follow your team on a away game, you go to Miami, as opposed to now we're going to go to Vegas. So that was even disingenuous, although we appreciated his vote. And, I think a lot of us Raider fans this year, like the Dolphins were our second favorite team. So I think that is the quintessential issue, is that they did not follow their own guidelines. I mean, the guidelines were very clearly stated, hey, you can move the team, but you have to exhaust all remedies. And, we definitely didn't feel that the Raiders exhausted all the remedies and basically have held a gun to the city's head. So
yeah, Mr. Ross told me personally that he didn't feel the Raiders had deep pockets to complete what they're trying to do. And
I mean, most of us would agree with that.
That's exactly what he told me. Hey, help me clear up with something while we're talking, in that it has to do with, well, first of all, before I get there, now that I have laid out the possible arguments the mayor can make if she wanted to, let me explain where the mayor went wrong. And where the mayor went wrong was, and this is from my perspective, and then I'll present the perspective of others. But from my perspective, first, when the mayor was first the mayor, I've known Libby since 1990. But to make a long story short, I explained to the mayor that she should put together a task force and that Robert Bob should head it up.
Yeah, I would. And I'm raising my hand. Yeah, definitely.
And I said Robert Bob, Andy Dolich, and then
that'd be two of the sharpest minds in the field. That would have been phenomenal. Both twice on Sunday.
And then the coup de grace thing for me, in terms of advice, is the types of advice I gave her, because she didn't do that. I said, remember when they came out with that document, the city, that was basically what we're doing to keep the Raiders, and the Raiders counter was, hey, look, that's not a plan, it's just like a proposal, and which they were.
Yeah, that was the one when the government in St. Louis had a 60-page document, and the one in San Diego had a 40-page document. The city of Oakland had a last-minute 5-page document.
That one. Well, and that part of that 5-page document. Well, first of all, the other thing that got me was that before that 5-page document was released, Mark Davis, Michael Silver, and myself were at the NFL Owners Spring League meeting at the Ritz-Carlton in San Francisco. This was after I made a video where I was blasting the mayor. Excuse me, it was blasting, not the mayor, blasting Mark Davis for going behind the mayor's back. And this is all on video on Zenny 62. And after that, about maybe 35, 40 minutes, Sil and I are talking with Mark Davis and Will Kiss, the Raiders PR guy, standing there. And we were talking about the then proposed new PAT rule. And I started talking about the stadium. And I said, why don't you form a task force? And Mark said, what's a task force? And he has a certain way of laughing nervously when he doesn't understand something.
Sure.
And so, I looked at him very calmly and I said, a task force is, I said, you know what, I'm happy to help you, show you how to do it. He goes, no, you do it. And I said, he said, you come up with a stadium plan. That's what he said to me. And I looked at him and I said, say that again? He says, you come up with a stadium plan. So I looked at Sil and I looked at him and I said, say that one more time. And he said, I want you to come up with a plan, send it to Will Kiss over there, and Will was standing against the wall over, on the side. And Sil took that, put it out on Twitter and said, it happened. I was there, moment of Zenny. And it's still And so I went right to work, and to make a long story short, I had a meeting with a conference call with 6 people. I created a spreadsheet first. People joked about, which was a hotel, basically 2 hotel wings.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
2 hotel wings helping to finance. And the reason why I came up with the hotel concept was not because hotels are neat, but it solved the financial riddle of how you add in, $300, $400 million without using extra tax dollars, right? And if you took the net operating income from the hotel over a 40-year period, which we could do, you could. If you took 45% of that, you could get $336 million. So boom, I got it. And I went out the net operating income for not just the net operating income, but all the details, like not just the construction cost, but the cost per square foot, the cost per room, everything else. I had it, as I say, down to the wall. I had down to the nails. Okay? And I submitted it. Piper Jaffray was impressed. They blessed the spreadsheet. Put this in writing. Yeah. Put this in writing, man. I still have the emails. And I sent it all to the mayor, and she did nothing. we had the special meeting in Schaumburg. I happened to get on the elevator. Mark Bourdain was on it. And Mark was like nervous, like, oh my God, it's Zenny. I don't know why these guys act nervous around me, but they do.
Well, I'll tell you, you dig deep, man. You get in there and you,
my thought is,
well,
it's not a journalist. I hate being called a journalist. I'm a blogger. But my point is that seriously, because my background's in urban planning. I create my own media company, but but my point is that this is my area of expertise. And so Mark could have just as easily been serious about that and said, okay, Zenny, you got something, come into my office. I may or may not use it, but let me hear you and give you the respect of
Let's pitch to him. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And they never did that. Neither did the mayor.
No.
Okay, neither did the mayor. The only people who did were Scott McKibben and Rebecca Kaplan at Boca Nova. And we went over every we went over every line item of the spreadsheet, and they both came away saying, well, you've thought of everything, because Rebecca said, you don't have hotel net operating income. And I said, yeah, it's right here. And she goes, oh. And then Scott said, look, you've thought of everything. You've crossed every I and dotted every T. And so I put that out there. And then much later in the year, in 2015, they come up with that crazy 5-page document. They could have used my plan, which was a plan, right? And then get this, Chris, get this. Libby put in that they were going to use tax increment financing. I told Libby to give, and this is going to resonate with you. I told Libby to give the land to the Raiders because you cannot own the land as a government entity and do tax increment financing. You have to have a private owner. I said, give it to the NFL, right? She goes, oh, that makes sense. And she never did it.
Yeah, that's a source of contention for a lot of people. That
I'm not
have
saying,
the land, you don't want to spend the money. I get that. I respect that. You said you're not going to spend the money to, build, a stadium. Okay, fair enough. We have the land. And why the city and county didn't just they could have. You don't have to give all the land.
Right, and someone says, well, they wanted it for $1 or anything. Yeah. You could have engineered it where the payment back to the city was the revenue they were going to generate, from income, right? There's all kinds of ways, because that's what they're doing in Vegas. In Vegas, they told the Raiders, hey, look, your rent is the bond payment. So you don't have to pay. That's what they did. But the trick is that if the bond payment happens to not work out, they can basically take the Raiders' leasehold. It's like a mortgage, okay? But my point is that there are all kinds of ways to work it out. We didn't even try.
Right.
And then I was told by someone else that Libby, and I'm not going to say who, Libby had instructed our then assistant city administrator, Claudia Capio, to not do anything, okay, with respect to the Raiders. Because on September 13th of 2016, when the Nevada legislature was about to vote on the SB1 that created this mess that they've gotten themselves into in Las Vegas, I went to City Hall to talk to Libby to find out where we are and give her an update and everything. And who came out of this meeting that I had no idea was going on? It just happened I happened to luck out. Larry Reed, Larry McNeil, who doesn't seem like he's involved with the Raiders anymore, does it?
No, I haven't heard.
Haven't heard anything. No one said anything, which is really mysterious. Okay. Anyway, Larry McNeil, Pat Cashman, a few other people, and Claudia. And I said to Claudia, have you worked out a spreadsheet with Ronnie Lott? And she's, no, excuse me. I correct myself. I said, where are you all with respect to Ronnie Lott and his proposal? Her response back to me was, we're waiting on their spreadsheet numbers. I said, well, why don't you help them along and make your own rather than waiting on him? And so I never got an answer to that and I just assumed that she didn't know how. Because I make spreadsheets like, drinking water. But, stadium.
I got to learn from you, man. My wife does all my spreadsheets. But
Oh, hey, yeah. I mean, easy. So, especially with stadiums. I've been doing it for a long, long time. So my point is, I'm thinking, she obviously doesn't know because here's and this is going to make sense to you as a negotiator, okay? You want your own model of what you're talking about, right? You want to be able to model it out so you have a negotiating point. Otherwise, you're going to walk in, excuse my language, a fucking meeting, and, you're not going to have anything laid out that shows where you expect your expenditures to go over time,
right.
and then you can talk about the formula calculations and whether or not they're correct and everything else. That's the way you do it.
Right.
But they're not doing. They weren't doing it like that. I'm like, you guys don't know what the frick you're doing. I mean,
that's a great point. Yeah.
You know, so it's like anyway. But my point is, I wanted to get that out of the way, but then ask you this question about, and because I get this thrown out a lot to me, and folks, I'll get to your comments because they're hot and heavy. We've got a hot and heavy show here, man. And hey, the whole the A's. First of all, where are we with the A's in the ballpark from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, so we have that's a great question. So, you know, I'll say that two things. Number one, we have a lease with the A's at the present Coliseum site through 2024, right? We have a lease there. So, you know, a lot of us were kind of upset or scratched our heads or, you know, state your reaction when the A's went, you know, basically announced, hey, we're moving to Laney College, and then basically had the rug pulled out of them. I look at, and I've been used as an example, you know, so look at when Walt Disney built Disney World in the swamps of Orlando, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't go in and say, hey, I'm building Disney World, and then try to buy all the land up. He went in there, he bought the land, he used different holding companies, he amassed all his land. Yep. Once he got the land in place, then he built Disney World, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, happiest place on the planet, right?
Yeah. It's called Hey, Chris.
I don't think the A's saw what was coming with the backlash from a lot of local groups there. Mm-hmm. I don't think they had their ducks in a row. So that being said, you know, I mean, you know, they're not. I mean, they're not. It looks like Laney College is dead. I know from what I'm hearing, I know there's looking at you know, the Howard Terminal site, and then just today the East Bay Times had an article about, hey, look, you know, let's look at Victory Court again. You know, Victory Court was the plan they looked at.
Right.
I don't know, that 10, 12 years ago or something like that. So, you know, I think we can make it work at the Coliseum site. I think the A's are still waiting to see how long the Raiders are going to be there, you know, if they want to keep that site. I know the A's moved their offices down to Jekyll and Square. So that's, you know, that's I guess, you know, where their mindset's going. So, you know, people said, hey, well, you know, now that, you know, they got, you know, they didn't get to go to, you know, the Laney College site, does that mean they're going to go to Portland, or they're going to move to San Antonio, or going to move to Charlotte, or Oklahoma City, or, you know, name kind of,
or Las Vegas,
or, you know, name one of your cities, or Vegas, right? And I mean, we're not there yet. I mean, we still, you know, again, the lease is still here in Oakland. I think, you know, when Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball last year, was 2 years ago, said, you know, maybe, you know, that originally Oakland was not seen as a prime place to, you know, as a prime city to keep a team, but now, you know, with the economy booming up in, you know, the Bay Area, and especially the East Bay, you know, it's a hot market. So, you know, I can't see the A's moving, especially if they become the only show in town.
Yeah.
I mean, you know. So.
Hey, so having said that, where are we? I mean, I'll just ask this question. Before I ask this question, let me get some comments. Wiggle Baby says, Coliseum site would be awesome if we had multiple stadiums. Everyone's bouncing, though. And then John Mark says, can Libby still give the Raiders Coliseum land? What about that? Does the mayor have jurisdiction over you guys where she could do that?
No, it's the city and the county have it. So, but, you know, as the mayor, she has the, you know, she can spirit the discussion to make that happen. I guess it would have to be a vote of the city council and the board of supervisors to give up the land. And, you know, there's been talk, let me throw this in real quickly. So there's been talk about the county selling their interest to the city of Oakland, so it would be just one negotiating.
Yeah, I was getting to that.
And that's probably what they have to do. I mean, they have to do, unify the land, if you will, get rid of the JPA, unify the land, and then the city could be a better negotiator, so you don't have to go through three different political entities. So, yeah, if they can do it, the problem is the city doesn't have the money to buy the county out.
Right,
so
and that's the other thing. I was talking about that with one Oakland council member, I won't say who, and our collective view of it was, why would we want to give up the full faith and credit power of Alameda County just because you have kids that can't get along? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. You know.
No comment.
I hear you. I understand that. Now,
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Barry Lee says, asks, do you feel? Barry Lee asks, do you feel with St. Louis being allowed to continue their lawsuit against the Rams and the NFL that if they lose, it will make the Raiders think twice and sit down at the table with the JPA?
Yeah, I mean, I think, sure. I mean, the Raiders aren't stupid. I mean, they're seeing these lawsuits go out. There's a lot of conjecture about why the city of Oakland voted against joining it, and obviously we can't all speculation. I don't want to talk about that, but they're not. They're watching, see what happens in St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis seems more organized than we are out here. A lot of times in these cases, maybe just money will change hands. Maybe the Rams have to make a payment, and that's what it sounds like Stan Kroenke wants to do. He's just going to give St. Louis some money, ultimately. Will it make them move back? I don't know. But I think what St. Louis is lining up is, either A, getting a future expansion team, or B, there's two teams, and Scott McKibben was on record as saying, the two teams looking to move potentially would be, the Tennessee Titans and or the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think St. Louis is setting themselves up to either probably get one of those teams or an expansion team. Now, there's 32 teams in the league. Do you want? Kind of, it's neat. All the divisions are 4 teams, that kind of stuff, and so I don't know if they would make any new expansion teams, but I think that's what, and I think that'd be Oakland's shot to try to probably get one of those existing teams. Although I wouldn't feel good about taking the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans, or something like that. I don't want to do that. But
what about an expansion team?
Oh, I would love an expansion. Yeah, definitely. I would take that. I just don't. I think that's way far down, and I think people have seen the experience in Oakland, and they just, the NFL is like, there's plenty of other cities that'd be easier to work with than Oakland. So I don't think we would get an expansion team, just because I think, so
that's interesting. Well, I have to ask you this question as well then.
Yeah.
What do you feel we can do to get our act together? Because one thing that I see about what's happening in Las Vegas, for all of the structural faults of the deal, is you have a more determined set. You have a set of bureaucrats that are determined to get it done, like we used to have. And
that is a quintessential $1 million question. When they built the Coliseum in the early '60s, we had people running the city that thought professional sports was important. We are all blessed to have grown up in Oakland around here, and I'm 46, so all the teams were here by the time I was born and grew up and all that stuff. But there wasn't that desire to bring, to get the teams here. I guess Sam Berkovich was a longtime gentleman, had a couple of clothing stores in Oakland, and he sponsored a lot of young people going through, baseball, and he was one of the movers and shakers in getting that Coliseum built. And we just, now in our society, that's not as important, and so people just, I'll say this. So when the last mayor's race, there was like a list of 20 priorities in the city, and keeping the Raiders came in last out of 20. So guys like us that are like live and die by this stuff, that are passionate about it, we're few and far between in the city like Oakland that prides itself on being progressive, prides itself on the, starting the Black Panthers, starting the, Hells Angels, Berkeley, all that good stuff, free speech movement.
I saw that
people here warn us though.
But I saw that actual poll, and I felt that question was misleading because it involved spending tax dollars.
Yeah, no, but guys,
as opposed, but Chris, as opposed to asking the blanket question, what should we do to keep the Raiders? Okay, and that's my point. But what bothers me, and I'd love to get your reaction on this, is that as a guy who started with Kofi Bonner and Phil Tagami back in 1996, the effort where the city of Oakland would go to the International Council of Shopping Centers Spring Convention and pitch Oakland to developers both national and worldwide, we've forgotten how to do economic development. Riddle me this. Do you know who brought Forest City to Oakland?
Most people would say Jerry Brown.
No, I did. In fact, it's documented. Yeah. And
awesome.
it's documented in a 2005 Business Times account where, their account.
That's phenomenal.
Their account is a smidgen of what the entire story. And I should write the entire story. But this is what happened. I'll make a long story short because I want to. This is you. But what happened was that in '96, when I became when I was into my second year, my first full year as economic advisor to the mayor, I picked up a Fortune magazine that had the legendary architect Robert A.M. Stern on it. And Robert A.M. Stern is known for example, the AT&T building in New York with that, that kind of, design at the top that has the cutout. There's a term for it that looks like you're an ottoman or something in your house of furniture, but
Sure.
and other buildings. But he's also at the time best known for the revitalization of Times Square. And
Okay.
yeah, and so basically, I cold called him because the reason I did it is that I thought, look, I represent the mayor of Oakland. I can call anybody in the world and get any information I need or anything I want responded to or done if I know how to present myself and I'm the economic advisor, so I had the title. I talked directly to Robert A.M. Stern himself.
Wow.
To make a long story short, he dispatched his deputy, Paul Whalen, out to Oakland. This is when Robert Bobb was the city manager, then city administrator, and we set about a plan where Forest City would be the master developer. I hadn't gotten hold of Forest City directly at that point, but Forest City, my idea was that Forest City would be the master developer, and they would get other developers to build in the uptown area and make it the Times Square of the West Coast, revitalizing both of our classic theaters, the Fox Theater and the Paramount. The Fox had already been rehabilitated, and the Fox, but we had a plan to really take them beyond that. And then we don't even to this day we don't have proper signage, uniform signage, like you go in the gas lamp, it's uniform, or street or sidewalk design or anything like that. Right? That was the whole idea. So Paul Whalen put me in touch with Susan Smart and the Forest City people and a couple of other people of Forest City, and we made a plan, an appointment for me to give a presentation about Forest City, about Uptown to Forest City there. I tried to get David Malmet to be the architect for Uptown. You would say, well, who's that? If you've ever gone to Hollywood and Highland, all right, he built that. So I got his cell number. I forgot how I got it, but I was determined. I got his cell number. I called him. You could hear, he picked up the phone. He had the top down. Okay.
Wow.
I gave him a 5-minute.
Nice.
I gave him a 5-minute pitch. He goes, you know what? If I wasn't tied up in building a new home for the Oscars, I'd do it. And that's how close I came to getting David Malmet into Oakland. So, so my point is that I gave the presentation. Larry Reed was there, Robert Bobb, everyone loved it. That's how we got Forest City. But at that time that I made the presentation in '97, then we were working out the machinations of how to move forward. Jerry had decided to run for mayor, and then got wind of what I was doing, and got hold of Forest City and made a side deal to make a long story short.
Yeah, we all know where that went.
It went from my plan, which was Elihu's plan, the mayor's plan. So in fairness, I should say it was Elihu Harris' plan. It went from that to Jerry Brown's 10K. And that is how we got what you see there in Uptown, which is not a ballpark, which could easily fit into our plan for Uptown. Easily.
Right.
Okay? It wasn't that.
Yeah, a lot of ace fans. This is...
Yeah,
I'm sure Steve Lowe talked about it. That's a sore.
Absolutely. So I asked. So you know, I was saying all that basically, you know, to fill in that blank as to what happened. But also, there are a number of people who say, "Hey, the A's have a 10-year lease, and that's what screwed us up." Is it really a full 10-year lease? I always thought it had options. Can you straighten that out for us?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And the Raiders definitely use that as their leverage to say, "Hey, you know, you sided with the A's, you know, over the Raiders." You know, we met with Lou Wolf, and he basically came to us and said, look, we want to stay in Oakland. And this is, you know, a lot of people forget, the A's were the team that was taken off, right? They were trying to go to Fremont, to go to San Jose, and all their stuff. And then he said, hey, we want to, you know, sign a long-term lease here. The lease was had options where, you know, if the Raiders wanted to build, no problem. If the A's were going to build in downtown, great. You know, and there's plenty of wiggle room to allow the Raiders to stay and the A's to stay. So I think, you know, and obviously I'm biased because I helped, you know, sign the lease. But, you know, there was plenty of room for the Raiders to build, the Raiders to stay. We weren't siding with the A's over the Raiders. It was, you know, it was a win-win for both, and it kept the A's. You know, basically it's keeping the A's. So, I mean, that's, you know, I would respectfully disagree that it drove the Raiders out of town.
Hey, so can you talk about this parking issue? And then for my viewers who may not know what I'm talking about, can you explain how we got into this mess with the Raiders?
And I don't have all the numbers, so I was going to talk in general terms.
Sure.
So the teams share, the A's, Raiders, Warriors, they share parking with the city and the county. You know, so you drive, you go to the Warriors game last Saturday, whatever, or Monday against Phoenix. You paid $40 to park, right? Well, the team gets some of that, the city gets some of that, the county gets some of that, Joint Powers gets some of that. And I don't have the figures, so I'm not going to talk exactly about it. What you're talking about, though, is about the Raiders, and that that many felt that they did not they did not pay their fair share.
Yeah,
so they collect the money.
Yeah, I can help you out. I can help you out with that. It's It's $983,600 that we said they were in arrears and paying. They said it was less than that, something like $60,000. I mean, so you got this like gigantic difference in numbers, right? So so there it is, just to help you out there. But go ahead, please.
No, you got it right there. And so anyway, yeah. So we're trying to work out getting the money that's owed to the city and county, and we don't have the exact figures what the Raiders owe. They're doing. I think we are going to get a report about it tomorrow, though. So we should know more about what's going on.
What do you think about John Gruden coming back?
I mean, that's just fantastic. All of us remember John the first time, and he has the full support of the Raider Nation. So I think a lot of us are excited.
Hey,
a lot of us are.
Do you think that? Because there's two schools of thought, and I'd love to hear yours. Some people think if the Raiders win the Super Bowl this year, they'll want to stay here, and they'll.
I mean, everyone's saying it. Everybody's saying it. I would like to think that. Because the other school of thought is that they win it. Then that kind of gets Oakland off their back, and then they can go off into sunset. So either way.
Okay, you got yours. I mean, I'll tell you what bothers me. As a guy who came up with an idea for the NFL draft to be here three years ago, that the Raiders are trying to pitch it for Las Vegas, and I'm thinking, man, give us a gift, give us a gift.
Yeah.
Work with us.
Well, even this year when they had the draft, they had the draft pick in Vegas. You're right, exactly.
And then because there are 5 finalists now for, I don't know if you know this, but I got this from the league about the cities. And which cities are the finalists to have the NFL draft in 2019 or 2020? And I got back from the league. The answer is Cleveland, Canton, Nashville, Kansas City, and Denver. Those are and Las Vegas. So those are the ones, and apparently they're going to decide the winner at the May NFL owners meeting, which should be interesting. But what do you think about the idea that McKibben had said that basically we were making more money we can make more money without the Raiders than with the Raiders?
Well, yeah, from a pure business sense, that is definitely correct. In terms, because it's the team again, so municipalities want to support teams. The teams basically say, look, we're providing these jobs. So. In terms of, how many, international soccer matches you're going to get at the Coliseum, how many, monster trucks you're going to get, I don't necessarily agree with that. But, when the Warriors leave, is Oracle going to have, much more open dates, for lack of a better way to say it, and they can get more concerts? The commission gets much more money by those concerts as teams. I think I mentioned a couple years ago the Raiders paid $900,000 in rent. You can get that in one night of monster trucks.
Is that right?
I agree with that, but it's not the point.
The
point is we want
is that right? No, I didn't know that. Is that right? Really? You can...
I threw that out that monster trucks brings in $1 million, but sure. Definitely. A Prince concert would bring in, a tremendous amount of money. And that's more than the Warriors are paying or more than the A's are paying for rent. Yeah, oh yeah.
Hey, so help me. That's true. Help me with this, because some people have bashed me, and I believe I'm right, but I want to hear your take on what I'm saying. In Las Vegas, a week ago Thursday, a dramatic, innovative new concept in arena design was announced called the MSG, Madison Square Garden Sphere. And it's 17,000 square feet in an orb, a circle, a beach ball, a globe that sits in a parking lot that's just west of where the Ferris wheel is in Las Vegas, in that area out there with the right, and where the monorail passes by on the, which would be on the left, basically on the way to the convention center, and that my contention is that the arena, that new concept, wherein you would be immersed in this gigantic, I believe the world's largest digital video board on one side of it, and the 17,000 the other, and the concert stage is right in the center, but everybody's peering down on that stage. But my thought was that would compete with the Raiders Stadium to get a concert.
Right. The existing, definitely, it would definitely compete with it. But, you know, the existing stadiums have leverage. They have, you know, like what was that when Pearl Jam, they weren't going to go to Live Nation, so they try to do it on their own and stuff like that. It's just,
see, I didn't know that.
You know, they try to do stuff like that.
Explain that.
They try to eat these guys out. I mean, that may be the future, but I mean, we have these buildings today, and you know, I mean, that may be way down the future. I'll probably be long gone when that's the norm, I'd say.
But I put that out there because the consultant model in Las Vegas was designed such that the Raiders needed 46 large-scale events for the deal to make more money,
right?
Revenue over expenses. And MGM's William Hornbuckle asked the question, "Hey, where are you going to get these events?" So when he asked the question, T-Mobile hadn't opened. Now it's open, and it's the home of the Las Vegas, you know, Scarlet Knights and Golden Knights, excuse me. And then you've got this other arena that's supposed to be open by 2020, and there's this man by the name of Jackie Robinson working on his own NBA arena. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's 3 arenas. That's basically, you want to say maybe 60,000 seats and over maybe almost 2 million square feet of space, and you're going to tell me that those facilities are not going to compete with the Raiders Stadium?
Right.
If you were on
you're correct. You're correct.
Yeah.
You're correct.
So I mean, it's that craziness. And thank you for saying that, because people have been saying, Zinni, you're not. And I said, no, I'm not wrong. But you sit on the JPA.
It's economics. It's economics. I mean, I'll leave you this because the wives are telling me I gotta take care of the family stuff. But I'll leave you this, right? So AEG that runs the Coliseum, their most profitable stadium is Kansas City. Now, what's the basketball team in Kansas City? What's the hockey team in Kansas City? There aren't one, right? So they have, I mean, they use it year round, and they have concerts, stuff like that, and they actually they're their most profitable business because just what you're saying, they have the space, and they're not really competing with anybody. When you're competing with a bunch of people, especially when they're in Vegas already, you know, I mean, so I don't see that the Raiders business model really coming to fruition.
Hey, you're daddy now, right?
No, I'm working on it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Chris
working on it.
Chris is a lucky man with a wife. I'm still casting my net.
Yeah. Well, Zan, I really appreciate you having me on. I always support you, and I always appreciate that you always, support me and stuff. And you always ask really good questions, and you have a fascinating story, my friend. So
thank you.
Anytime we can help out, I really appreciate it, man.
You got it. Hey, and folks, stick around because I'm going to talk about the Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting, what happened today, before I close, and then get your comments and everything else. Chris, want to have you back, man. By the way, Chris,
I'm honored.
Tell him how to contact you for legal representation.
Yeah. So law office Chris Dobbins, 510-928-0454. Get free consultation, and we do a number of different areas of law. But then I really appreciate you having me on. Thanks.
You got it, man. Hey, thank you for helping me out. You got
We'll talk to you soon.
An Oakland legend. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Thanks. Oh, hey, quick shout out to my buddy Tim for watching tonight too. Thanks.
You got it, man. Okay.
Bye.
I see you. So that's the man, Chris Dobbins, the man, not a myth, a legend, and known for a long time, has always been involved in Oakland sports retention activities, I should say. As John Mark says, thanks. And so, would you guys have any comments you want to make about what you've heard Mr. Dobbins say or us talk about, And I think as far as what happened with the Vegas Stadium Authority, the big deal is that they really did get out of the way. This disagreement, at least it seems like they got out of the way, this disagreement that plagued and slowed down the formation of this community benefits committee, what they did was the guy that Tommy White, the head of 872 Laborers, wanted to head the committee, Sean Stewart, said magnanimously, hey, you know what? I'm out of it. I'm happy to help you, but I don't want to be considered for the chairperson role. And so that opened it up to Ken Evans, who's also currently on the, authority. And Tommy White chimed in and said, hey, legally, we have an issue with that because of Dillon's rule. Now, if you don't know what Dillon's rule is, Dillon's rule says that the Nevada legislature has to determine, basically it sets the taxes for the state and other types of organizations, right? But what happened is that since the legislature voted to create the Stadium Authority has the right to create its own committees and determine who chairs that committee. So, Tommy White lost that argument, but I'm curious to see if he's done anything between now and then to throw a monkey wrench into things, because he didn't get what he wanted, okay? And so John Mark says, what are the chances the Raiders are gone? John, I don't know. And my point is that, and I say that because, first of all, I really hate predictions like this. And the reason why I do is because it has to do with the development. It has to do with real estate development. And here's the problem. Here's why I really I get ticked off with the question. Because, and the reason I get ticked off with the question, John Marks, is the same reason why I keep bird dogging this issue. Because as a person who's seen facilities be proposed, ground broken, and then they don't get built, or like the Fontainebleau, they get built to where they're maybe 60% complete, and then they're just left to hang out there like a hulk. Just because something is broken ground for doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's going to be complete. Now, John is asking, I need to file the court injunction both in Oakland and in Vegas this year. But John, you need to do it. You've been talking about this for a long time. And you type this thing, and I'm saying, why is it you keep asking? And this has been going on for like 6 months, and you don't do anything. If you're going to do something, how many times do I say just do it? But asking a question, it doesn't do anything for anybody. I mean, I say that to a lot of people. Folks, you have one life, all right? And if you're going to do something in life, don't talk it, do it. If you're not going to do it, just say, hey, I'm not going to do it. I thought of running for mayor. I put it out there, I thought about it, but I put a caveat. I said, I'm thinking about it. I didn't do it. And I didn't do it because I am, family here with my mom. I fly back and forth, sent rent off to maintain my place in Oakland, pay the energy bill there, okay? But I made a statement. I said, hey, look, this is why I'm thinking about it and everything else. And then when I said I'm not going to do it, I didn't do it, and I went to support the mayor's campaign. So my point is, to anybody that's out there, to you, John Marks, anybody, you have the internet, you can do the research on what it takes to file an injunction. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, why am I hesitating and what am I afraid of? Okay? And so that's my point. So I'm not worried. John says, I will definitely do it, don't worry. I'll be honest with you. I'm not holding my breath because you've been saying this for a long time. Okay? I am just really being honest. Wiggle Baby says, you would be a really good public servant if you did run for office, though. Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Don Richard says, I remember when Texas was going to build the largest particle smasher in the world. I remember that, too, because do you realize that Texas got the contract to do that over California, to build the world's largest atom smasher? I remember that, too. Let's see if I get your other comments here. Silver and Black says, Forever Oakland rally coming up. Yeah, that's February 20th. And we've got Go CSU says number 1%, the Raiders are gone. That's what I think. And here's why, and I'm getting back to my point about why I don't like to prognosticate that. There are so many variables that come into play that people don't expect with development. For example, let's take LA. There was a nasty rain that happened last year that delayed that project a year. The Raiders project is in a floodplain, okay? And a floodplain. And as Donald Richards says, he's making a point about how things get approved but never built. Right. The Raiders project is in a 100-year floodplain, all right? And maybe what that means is it doesn't rain a lot, but when it does, the water collects there. And that's a gigantic issue that the Raiders have to fix because they have to build the necessary infrastructure to drain water. It's not there. It's a terrible problem. It's a really terrible problem. So that has to be dealt with. And then, of course, there is the fact that we don't have, unless maybe it was posted since I've been gone. I went to see Black Panther, folks. Black Panther is an amazing movie. You've got to see it. I put my review up here on Zenny62 at YouTube. But Black Panther is I can't say enough for how incredible a movie it is, okay? Now, as far as... I just can't, all right? So, now as far as where we are with today, I am trying to find out the January Raiders UNLV hotel stadium tax revenue data. No one shared that at all. No one, okay? Don't know. I know it's available because generally by this time, you would have heard about it. You'd have heard something, okay? Now here's the USA Today says Raiders Las Vegas Stadium exceeds minority hiring target. Construction work at the Oakland Raiders Stadium in Las Vegas has so far exceeded the target for minority when hiring. That's good news. You got to report news. You have to report news and give congratulations. Minority hiring on the minority hiring. Excuse me. You have to give credit where credit is due, and say, hey, that's something that they achieved. Now, is that the main problem? It's not. No, it's not. It's the hotel tax. The hotel tax just simply isn't performing right. It isn't. Now, we've got, let's see here. The other news that is coming out here is they're expecting the final cost. This is by Rich Villoda. They're expecting the final cost of the Raiders Stadium in Vegas. It's called the guaranteed maximum price, okay? And that's once they get the guaranteed maximum price out of the way, that should open up the door for the Raiders to sign their non-relocation agreement and then the stadium development agreement and then move toward having the bond issue approved. Now, the bond issue does come up Tuesday at Clark County, Clark County Board of Commissioners, all right? But according to Rich Villoda in the article I haven't read yet, I just happened to see it, it says a final cost for the Raiders Stadium in Las Vegas is going to be determined over the next few days. To arrive at the figure, representatives of the Oakland Raiders will meet with the general contractor of the project to itemize the guaranteed maximum price of the facility. Determining the price, Minneapolis-based Mortensen Construction Company will charge the Raiders to build the 65,000-seat dome stadium, estimated at $1.9 billion, as a critical step toward finalizing a stadium development agreement between the Raiders and Las Vegas Stadium Authority. The $1.9 billion estimate has been targeted for more than 2 years. If the actual price turns out to be higher, the Raiders would be responsible for paying the extra amount. That is because Senate Bill 1 approved a special session. Right, it said basically the public contribution was capped at $750 million. And we've talked about that, of course. And Don Webb, the chief operating officer of the Raiders Stadium Company, is expected to review every line item of the construction budget to determine the guaranteed maximum price, which will become a part of the final development agreement document. That document will be considered for approval by the authority on March 1st. Authority board members on Thursday took some major strides toward reviewing several supplementary documents that will be part of the approval process. And the meeting was 2.5 hours long, and it said, I watched the first hour. The second hour, I went to interview my friend Lee Steinberg for an hour. But anyway, he says members received detailed explanations on agreements for personal seat license, marketing and sales, PSL accounts, project development, and the construction fund trust and construction funds disbursements. And then it says contracted attorney Mark Arnold. I'm reading all of this detail here, but it says that the authority's designated staff also walked board members through 15 agreements that don't require authority approval, but were explained to provide the big picture of the final approval process. And then it said the UNLV joint use agreement was briefly discussed, but they said the agreement was already reviewed and approved by the UNLV regents. Will be a supplemental document to the final development agreement, so they'll fold that in there and they'll vote on the whole thing as one. And there was no approval of any agreements done. All right, and so yeah, the whole news is coming out of this one was, as I told you, the Community Benefits Oversight Committee. That was a big deal, and he doesn't mention Tommy White in this, and Tommy White's objection. So which is, at least I don't think he does. He does not. He does not, and so they said that the state authority issued its February report that room tax and collections were running 6.1% ahead of the budgeted projections, but that doesn't include January. So, they've got the information for January. I mean, I know they've got it because in the past they have been very good about, how should I say, reporting, on this, okay? So they've been very good about it, all right? And so I'm kind of like, what are you guys hiding? You gotta keep digging. You gotta keep digging. Now, we've got, okay, getting back to your comments. John Davis says, can Nevada do this? Well, it's not. Nevada Governor Cannon wants to use Raider money for education. Well, he can. He can unravel that. Yeah, he can do that as governor. He gets the votes. He can do it. Sure. It's Democratic controlled legislature. That can definitely happen. So again, the main problem with the deal is the stadium numbers and the possibility that, hey, if they don't get this far, will UNLV take it over? Remember, that date of April 16th of this year is hanging out there. But as far as the bond issue is concerned, something that for everybody to think about, okay, is that as long as the bond underwriter can siphon off from the general fund, they don't care. In other words, I'm going to put it to you very coldly. I'm going to use a little nasty vernacular, okay, a little cuss word. They don't fucking care about the taxpayer. They don't care that they have to dip into a fund that can take money away from operating education or anything else. And the Nevada Taxpayers Association has done this. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, all right? Like the three monkeys, okay? And I'm not calling them monkeys. I'm saying that's the meme that is most famously attached to someone who acts like they don't know what's going on, and yet they're in a power to know what's going on and do something about it. All right? So we've got Malcontent says, Z, yes, for the hotel tax, is that 6% above the budgeted waterfall amount. I doubt it's 6% above the amount that they would need to cover the bond's debt service. Yeah, that's above the waterfall amount. And Malcontent, I'm glad you made that point, because they are as far as John Marks, the county, the tax information, when you call Clark County, they wind you back to applied analysis. The whole deal is very tricky. They don't want people getting out information. You have to dig, ask people questions, hope you get an answer back, and find that one person that's going to spill the beans. But they're findable. Now, as far as Malcontent is saying, that's with respect to the waterfall. And the only good month they've had with respect to the waterfall is March of last year. And since then, it's gone on a steady decline to where now the average revenue is just about over $4 million. Now, if you take the debt monthly, and that debt monthly is around 3.3 million, okay, times 1.5, that amount that it gets you is over and above the revenue that's being generated. And to a point where it doesn't reach the 1.5 to 1 debt coverage ratio required by law, by the industry, not by the industry, okay? So if that's not, but you would say, okay, that should stop the project, right? If it's a revenue bond, this is not a revenue bond. This is a general obligation bond. So you can have those problems and yet dip into the general fund. The political problem comes in when that happens. All right? And the reason why they're not putting out that number is undoubtedly because that number is low. And they don't want anybody to know it. And you have this media right here that's not asking the question. I'm going to keep hammering home the question, because everyone knows now that what I said was going to happen a year, like last April 15th of 2017, I said that the tax revenue stream was not large enough to cover the $750 million subsidy. That's looking like that's the case. And everyone's saying, hey, Zinni was right. And they can't stand that. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. So they don't want to put that out there, because they know the minute that number is out there, I'm going to see it, and I'm going to report on it, and they hate that. So so Malcontent says they are 1/3 short, about 1.6 million per month. Yeah, that's right. That's right. They're 1/3 short. And Malcontent says no more history or science books for Billy and Sally in Santa Clara. Right. John Mark says Vegas deserves better. Silver and Black says Chris Dobbins was right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So this, like I say, you know, they got over the milestone. They have minority hiring goals achieved, but they haven't finished procuring work in the project. They'll get there. They have to. So, but they're trying to also rush everything to finish the stadium by 2020. And let's just do a little quick figuring here, okay? Just to say that by the time they really have this all wrapped up, where they're really ready to go, all right? And that would be, let's see, let's get a calendar. Get a 3-year calendar. A 3-year calendar. Let me try this, okay? Let's say 27 months from now. 27 months from today. Add or subtract from a date. What is 27 months from now? Okay. Today is February 16th. When you ask 27 months from now, that would be Wednesday, May 6th, 2020. Okay? So that's if they started right now, it would be in terms of actually building the foundation and going forward. All right, they're not even done with the pre-development work. That's another few weeks. The way things are looking, it won't be until April. So let's say if it's May, June, July, they'll be looking at, if they could get it done in 27 months, they'll be looking at July or August. and for 28 months. So realistically, this is the situation they're bumping up against. Where do you play your preseason games? Okay, if the stadium isn't ready to be open until September, then the preseason games would have to be in Oakland, and then the rest of them would have to be in Vegas. Or if it's not ready, maybe something else happens, October. The point I'm making is that they are inching toward a position where they would really have to stave off anything until the 2021 season. Okay, that's what it's looking like, 2021. Now, the Raiders are playing it like this. They're saying, okay, we'll extend the lease until 2020, and then we'll go along, and then, you know, if it looks like we need an extra year, we'll ask for it. That's what's happening. Now, here's the other problem in all of this. There could be a lockout. There could be a player strike, okay? And as John Marks says, players may strike in 2022. Actually, it's looking more like 2021, and that they would strike. And that would throw a monkey wrench into every freaking thing. PSLs, you don't know how long that strike's going to go on for. And Christian Navarro says Black Panther was dope. Yep, I saw it. So anyway, yeah, John Rich says that would be May 6th if they started now. But hey, Donald, they're not even ready to start now. No documents have been approved. For all the hullabaloo, right now there are only 2 documents, and not only that, get this: the non-relocation agreement has not been signed by the Raiders. It's still an issue. It wasn't even placed up there for discussion. The non-relocation agreement stands in the way. Think about that. Okay? So, got some problems, all right? I'm going to go back over the Stadium Authority meeting, see if was any conversation about that. Malcontent says we need to get the word out more broadly about the general obligation bond. The city, county voters should not be subjected to our pain. Repost what I put out there, because I wrote what I contend is the definitive piece. Yeah, I said that. The definitive piece on how this is going to impact Clark County voters. And I'm going to share that with you right now, okay? And I'm getting the information, because I've said this, and I know that they don't want to give me credit, but screw them. I don't care. I'm pushing this. Let's see here. It is now 12:36. I think I'm going to stop at 12:45 and give my mom a hand downstairs there. Also, don't forget, let's see, Raiders, there's the Asian visitor problem. There is the Taxpayers Association problem. There's the tax subsidy, $1 billion. And what else is there? Let's see here. Here it is. Clark County taxpayers back problematic Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas NFL stadium bonds. And I'm going to Malcontent, I'm about to post this full link right there. It's just going over, because it's not just my video, it's a full blog post. Yeah. So I'm copying this, okay? And I'll say here it is. There it is, Malcontent. That's it. It's now a live link. And John Marks, I will say hi to Mama Z. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. When are we all getting in together in person? Good question. Malcontent says, I got that. So Malcontent, there you go. And as far as a live gathering, I think, let me take the I think out of my sentence. I want to have an event in Oakland that combines, that's a sort of a celebration. It has people that have been on the show, people running for office, fans like yourself, ex-Raider players. Maybe I can get Ray Chester to come by. Ex-Warrior players, ex-A's players, community movers and shakers of all stripes. You know, make it a nice thing. And you know, I at first I had one place picked out, and now I'm thinking maybe it should be the Alley, but the Alley. Well, actually, my friend Jackie said she'd give it to me on a if I scheduled it, like say on a Saturday during the day, like let's say from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, she said she would give me that. And I have to double check with her. The Alley's a historic place. If you haven't been there, you got to come there. She said she'd give me that. And I really have to do it. If I do anything, it's got to be at the Alley because Jackie's my dear friend. And I have always talked about doing something to give back to Jackie, to thank her for how great a friend she's been to me over the years. It's been a while, okay? It's been a while. So I'd love to do that, you know? And John Rich says, I need a date before the kids fill up my book. Okay, I'll work on getting you a date. And I want to get a sponsor, too. And Dean Willie says, John Marks, exactly what does an injunction do? Dean, an injunction stops something from happening. It could be someone getting hired. It could be a bridge being built. It could be someone building a home next to your home, as Chris Dobbins used, you know, that example, okay? Hey, good night, John Marks. Good night. And as John Marks says, bet your last money, you know, I'll say this: watch horror films, keep America strong, but that's what an injunction does, all right? And that's exactly what an injunction does, okay? So I'm going to shuffle off the bubble. Check out, please. This is the other thing I'd like you to watch, because I'm very proud of it. Is my just over 1 hour long interview today with my friend, the famed legendary sports agent Lee Steinberg. Okay, and that I really want to thank Lee for giving me his time, valuable time. And I'd like for everybody to listen to. He talks about some names you know, like Paxton Lynch. He answers the questions you've had about Paxton Lynch.
Figured out a way to save a bunch.
And he talks about Patrick Mahomes. And I'm going to take parts of that and cut that up and repost those. But please, you know, have a look at the Lee Steinberg interview. I say Lee Steinberg there. Get a cup of coffee and enjoy it. Right there. Lee Steinberg, okay, right there. The next vlog, this is Thursday night, right? Sunday. So the next vlog is for Sunday. I don't have a guest lined up yet. I'm working on the same kind of deal that I did this week. But Sunday at 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 Eastern. Yeah. And so John Davis says, how close are the Raiders to start building? This is what has to happen, okay? First of all, that's a good blog post. The Raiders need to get the guaranteed maximum price out of the way. They have to have the stadium development agreement approved. They have to have the relocation agreement signed. And then they have to turn over the land to the stadium authority by agreement, okay? And then the county has to approve the floating and the bonds for the project. So all that is scheduled to happen within the next 2 months. So we've got a special meeting on coming up March 1st. And then assuming that goes well, they should be ready to start they want to start by April, by late April. That's when they want to start, is by late April, okay? So that's their target, all right? That's the idea. So Donald Richardson says it's 6 months from now. And I would say at the long end, it's going to be 6 months. Yeah, I am, because their timelines are one thing. Yeah, but you have to remember something. When they first started out, they said way back in, I think you'll remember this, okay? They said they'll be ready to build this thing by January of this year. All the documents were supposed to be signed by October. So they are full 5, going on almost 6 months behind. You can't fall behind by that much and then still say, we're going to open by June 2020. You know, it's ridiculous. You are 5 months behind and 6. So it's just not happening. They don't even have all their vendors signed up where they're going to work that quickly and get all this done. It's just not happening. So there you go. Alcatin says also Bank of America needs to review and underwrite their loan. That's right. But see, they can't, the Bank of America can't do that until the guaranteed maximum price is arrived at. And it's going to be interesting to see what that comes out to be. You know, I'm going to start snooping around myself. And Don Rich says it'll be a year behind real fast. Yeah. And Malcolm, yeah, it will be. All right, folks, 12:44. I'm going to say, see Black Panther. See Black Panther. Awesome work. See Black Panther. See you guys. Good night. So I'm writing good night. See you Sunday. See you Sunday. And watch Lee Steinberg. Watch my Lee Steinberg interview, please. Thank you. Let me know what you think. Good night, everybody. See ya. See ya.